whether it's too much emotional processing or too much bliss. How do we ground into being? So, if we're experiencing an ongoing processing of emotions without having enough awareness or the knowing to know when to pause, to know when it's time to shift into emptiness. Because of that blind spot, people are experiencing burnouts. So, similarly, now speaking of higher levels of consciousness, where one may experience too much, a lot of bliss. Yes, and sometimes being immersed in intense bliss or samadhi in stages of meditation, one may lose a certain awareness of this world, of this reality. One may lose the awareness of your certain responsibilities, your family, if you have one. So if this is the case, of course, this is happening more in the higher regions of divine, in the higher levels of consciousness, when one may not have enough strength just yet. So even there, even if it's all blissful, but if it's too much, you must become aware and shift your focus from that bliss and ground yourself. It is very, it's a common sense to know when one needs to shift their attention, shift their focus, so that one can ground, one can center. And the beauty about this, when we are speaking of the higher levels of consciousness, well, at the higher levels of consciousness, one does not rest in presence consciousness. One rests in the great void. So that is number 2, restful place. So when someone is in divine consciousness and is blissing out too much and cannot quite handle themselves and yet have responsibilities, then one can shift their focus into the great void. Because the great void is a true restful place. It's even deeper than presence because it's beyond all manifestation. It's beyond all creation. So the void is known as the great void. It is not a space, it is a void. So it's not the same like presence, though someone in presence may, of course, not have the ability to experience the void, because the void is opened up at a certain maturity and a certain level of consciousness. But beyond the void, when one opens to divine bliss and love and truth and divine awareness, one can rest in this great unknown, where actually all energy and all manifestation, all creation of all 700 quadrillion universes and our local universe and all creation truly longs to return back to the great void. So even your energies, even the higher mind, which is the awareness consciousness. All of this is truly resting in the void, in a place of nothingness. There is nothing in the void. And in that great nothingness, you are absolutely rejuvenated, replenished. It is even better than a night's sleep. Because when you sleep, most probably you're traveling in your astral body and a lot of things are going on. You're not really resting. Yes. So if you have lucid dreaming, you're always aware of all that is happening while your physical body is resting. So it's not real rest. But in the void, all energy melts. All energy resolves and returns, and it's all longing to return to this deep, deep peace and deep restfulness, where it's beyond any comprehension. There is nothing to know, nothing to understand, definitely nothing to do. And that is the second state or level of consciousness where you truly support this integration. It strengthens you. It allows you to, it's like the most replenishing reset ever. It's good for your nervous system. It's good for even the higher mind, lower mind, like all of it. Everything comes to an absolute full stop. And although it may not be so interesting for many, but that is one replenishing and rejuvenation of a stateless state to be at. So even if one opens up to full consciousness, into the absolute self, and being open to a very intense light from the source, that too, if it's too much, creates a disbalance. And that is where, from full consciousness, we go down into the great void, into nothingness, and just rest. So now this part is for the higher levels of consciousness. So as you see, whether emotional processing or bliss and divine light, still there is a state of being, or an emptiness or a nothingness, where one can return and allow everything to return back to. That is very integral. Very, very integral. So how do we remain grounded and centered? Of course, meditation. And with meditation, of course, doing the practice alone, you may have only a certain amount of strength. Then when we're doing the practice together in like a group format, there is a certain strength that you experience. When we are meeting in a private session, one-on-one, that is the most strength that you receive in that meditation, in that transmission. But if you want to also feel supported while you are alone, you can work with these two tools, we may call them, and one is the column of peace and space. So for the ones here who They know me, they know Mindo, and in private meetings, how we are bringing certain tools to further support your higher strength and create the perfect environment. We are using the column of peace and space so that you can start to anchor to, because that becomes your higher spine, the vertical column that aligns you to center with, because space is vast. How if there is not enough strength in one's own beingness, sometimes it's not possible to abide in that space of being, because there is a bit of weakness, not enough cultivation of presence. So use the column of peace and space to support you to feel that strength from above and to start to learn how to return back to this abidance. So we'll use that in meditation today, and of course on the higher level of consciousness. For the great void, we bring the column of the great void, as that becomes your supportive environment so that you can regain your grounds and your centredness. There's other ways, such as using a spirit mantra, but since this depends on the individual according to where one is at, I will not speak about this because this is very individualized, and generally we bring this forward during the private meetings because that is individualized. But working with the spirit mantra helps one to ground and integrate the higher light they're opening and adjusting to higher light of consciousness. But just to know that that too is available. And one more thing to share with you is not to forget about maintaining balance. And a beautiful way to maintain balance is to remember the heart, is to remember love. This is so important. Because, for example, if there is too much self-inquiry practice, this may create a disbalance. So bringing more heart, bringing more love, bringing devotion to love, this brings an overall higher balance to oneself. Especially if one has this more of like a mental approach or pushing way too much that one can handle, then we bring in the loving presence, or we bring in the loving awareness, or the divine love even. And that will support the overall higher balance to you. So that is also so important, not to forget this devotion to love, this surrender to love, because it helps to balance out any mental energies, any edges, any too much of something. It brings a much higher balance. And another note to mention is about integration. So important. Because as we are opening up to higher levels of consciousness, opening up and adjusting to higher light of consciousness. The opening may happen, yes. The realization of the higher light is attained, yes. But that is just the tip of the iceberg, although realization is here. Because integration takes approximately about 7 years after the opening of the consciousness. So if you have realized yourself as the clear light of awareness, the light that sees, the light that is already here now, well, that's the opening, that's the realization of the light. But then it takes 7 years to integrate that light. Integration comes true to all that we've spoken about now. Now, for balance, for grounding, for a greater harmony, for balance with love. So all that we've discussed, if it's applied with full responsibility, this can be a beautiful unfoldment of integration. Because integration means you're integrating that higher light into the being here now. It's not about traveling somewhere there. It's about then integrating into being, into the here and now, in the most harmonious of ways. So be patient, very important. And without pushing yourself more than you can handle, because this higher light, it's so intense that it requires certain maturity, step-by-step opening, following the right practices according to where you're at, with love, with softness, with compassion, with kindness, in balance, in centredness, in grounds. This will surely be a very beautiful integration towards the divine. So that is the intention, and that's the direction we want to apply. So I hope that this helps to illuminate certain challenges in your life experience, and to apply what is necessary. And of course, we are here for you. If you need support, if you need guidance, Satminda and myself are always here available to you, whoever needs that help.